Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. When you think of the worst draft trade in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, something might immediately come to mind. In the 1995 NFL Draft, the Eagles had the 12th pick. They decided to trade up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to select Boston College defensive end Mike Mamula, giving up their first-round pick and 2 second-round picks. While the Bucs got Warren Sapp and work done as part of the package, Mamula became one of the biggest busts in Eagles history. In his 5 seasons in the NFL, he had just 31.5 sacks. And especially with the benefit of hindsight, there's not too much defending of this move. However, at least Mamula did something. It wasn't much, but it was something. He had a game against the Giants with 2.5 sacks. He scored multiple touchdowns. He had multiple seasons with at least 8 sacks. At least the Eagles got some sort of value. Because with that in mind, the Eagles had a draft trade that was way worse. They gave up not 1, not 2, but 3 early picks for a player who wound up playing a grand total of 0 snaps for them. And this is the story behind the worst draft trade in Eagles history. Before I talk about the details of the trade, we need some context as to why the Eagles were looking to enter the trade market in the first place. Our story begins in 1964, when Philadelphia and Washington made one of the most iconic trades in NFL history. In that trade, Sonny Jurgensen got shipped to Washington, while Norm Snead came to Philly. It's very clear that Washington won this trade, as this move by Philadelphia was widely regarded as a bad one. To be fair to Snead, he had some solid moments with the Eagles. He made the Pro Bowl in 1965. He threw 29 touchdowns in 1967, which was the second most in the entire league. He even had one of the greatest games by any quarterback in the 1960s, when in a 34-24 victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1967, he threw for 4 touchdowns and no interceptions while posting a passer rating of 142. Snead was not a bad quarterback, at least not at the start. However, after that 1967 season, the Eagles struggled heavily with Snead under center. In 1968, he led the league with 21 interceptions thrown. In 1969, he followed it up by once again leading the league with 23 interceptions thrown. And in 1970, he followed it up by finishing second in the league with 20 interceptions thrown. Over those 3 seasons, the Eagles went 9-26-2. When you're winning less than 25% of your games, yeah, that's not good. The Eagles had a quarterback in his 30s who was a turnover machine and was not winning any games. They didn't have a quality backup, as their only other quarterback on the roster was Rick Arrington, an undrafted rookie who in his only start went 3 for 10 with 16 yards passing, 3 interceptions, and a 0.0 passer rating in a loss to the Green Bay Packers. The quarterback room was bleak. However, the Eagles had a top 5 draft pick. That's a prime spot to get a quarterback. There's just one small problem. In any other draft, this would be the perfect spot to get a quarterback. But in 1971, you had 3 quarterbacks going in the first 3 picks for the first time ever. The Boston Patriots had the first pick, and considering their quarterbacks combined for 7 touchdowns and 28 interceptions the year before, as the team had the worst offense in football, they selected Jim Plunkett, the reigning Heisman winner. I made a video about Plunkett, which you can check out by clicking the card in the upper right corner. That pick was a no-brainer. The New Orleans Saints had the second pick, and they had the second worst offense in football, while their quarterbacks combined for 11 touchdowns and 22 interceptions, so they chose Archie Manning. And the Houston Oilers, with a third pick and very similar statistics from their anemic quarterbacks, chose Dan Pastorini. Just like that, the Eagles at pick number 5 were in a bit of a pickle. Okay, here's where we are right now. The Eagles desperately need a quarterback, but after it was abundantly clear that 3 quarterbacks were going to be taken with the first 3 picks, the Eagles were going to be shut out of one of the blue chip prospects. With the benefit of hindsight, we know that the 1971 class was actually a pretty good one, as you had guys like Lynn Dickey, Joe Theismann, and Ken Anderson go later on. However, after the 3rd pick, the next quarterback taken was with pick number 56 in the 3rd round. In other words, there was no shot that Philly would be able to take a quarterback with the 5th pick. It would have been a major reach. They had to look elsewhere to fix their needs. And with that, they looked to the Detroit Lions. The man they were looking at was a man by the name of Greg Barton. He was drafted by Detroit in the 9th round of the 1968 NFL Draft, but was never going to see the field behind former first-round picks Greg Landry and Bill Munson. There's a reason I'm not showing footage or highlights of anything that Barton did, and that's because he threw a grand total of 1 pass with the Lions. Why the Eagles were so interested in Barton, seeing as he was a low draft pick and did nothing in Detroit, I'm not sure, but they felt strongly that he was the answer. Now, even though Barton was unhappy in Detroit riding the bench, and even though Barton was going to be a free agent in just a few weeks, as he played out his option, the Eagles, for some inexplicable reason, offered up the farm. They gave Detroit a second-round pick in 1971. They gave Detroit a second-round pick in 1972. And they gave Detroit a third-round pick in 1972. 2 seconds and a third for a quarterback who did nothing and was going to be available for nothing. After making this trade, the Eagles doubled down by immediately shipping Norm Snead off to the Minnesota Vikings. They were all in on Greg Barton. He was going to be the future. There was just one small problem. Barton wound up playing a grand total of 0 snaps. When Barton was traded to the Eagles, he met with everyone on the team. He met with head coach Jerry Williams, who he thought was fine. He met with general manager and former All-Pro wide receiver Pete Metzlaff, who he thought was fine. And then he met with owner Leonard Toews, and immediately realized that something was off. As Barton said afterwards, "I could tell from the day I met him that there's something not good here." And Barton had some leverage because around the same time, the Toronto Argonauts and the CFL offered him a contract. There was talk that the Argonauts illegally tampered with Barton, but nothing much came of it. Barton didn't like Philly's owner. He was going to be making $50,000 in Canada, making him the highest paid player in the CFL, and was offered a contract that had a no-cut clause. Considering the fact that Barton wanted to settle down since he was starting a family, this move to play in Canada seemed like a no-brainer. Barton played in the CFL, spurning the Eagles. And just like that, the Eagles gave up 3 high draft picks and their starting quarterback for nothing. To the surprise of no one, they were terrible the year after, firing Jerry Williams after 3 games and starting the season off 0-5. And over the following 2 seasons, the Eagles continued to struggle on offense without a good quarterback, finishing 5th worst in 1971 and dead last in 1972. As for Norm Snead, who they traded away because they got Barton, he made the Pro Bowl in 1972 while sweeping the Eagles by throwing for 6 touchdowns over the course of those 2 games. And the Lions used the picks on Ken Sanders, who had an 8-year career in Detroit and started every game for the team from 1973 to 76, and Dave Thompson, who would later be involved in the craziest draft trade of all time with the New Orleans Saints. You can learn more about that chaotic trade by clicking the card in the upper right corner. It's clear that this trade for Philadelphia was nothing short of disastrous. To give up 3 high draft picks and get a player who hasn't played a single game for you is really bad. To give up your starting quarterback in reliance on that trade, and then that quarterback goes on to torch you and make the Pro Bowl, is another level of awful. Why this trade seems to be forgotten considering just how bad it was, I don't know. But I do know this. With apologies to Mike Mamula, what Philadelphia did in 1971 has to be without a doubt the worst draft day trade in the history of the franchise. Be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JRGamer9 and subscribe to 60-second NFL history on YouTube. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.